Hi, this is Dan Boutin from VocRehabRadio.com. I'm coming to you today from the Windy City, but there's no wind here. I'm here because the National Rehabilitation Association is holding its annual conference actually right behind me. The greens are pretty nice. We got a little scenery going here. We got some nice little trees. But really, who are we kidding? Let's go find out what kind of information is being shared at the sessions. The first session I went to is hands-on Hyatt hospitality training, and this is partnership between VR and Hyatt Regency Hotel, and they've been training people with disabilities for, I think they said 14 years, since 1998, and they've trained over 1,300 people with disabilities, and they have about a success rate of about I think 65%. That still works out to be 60 people per year, so we're talking about more than one person a week finding a job in the hospitality industry from this partnership. And some of the areas that they're working would be culinary, housekeeping, laundry, storeroom, receiving, engineering, maintenance, cafeteria attendant, things like that. You know, they just wrapped up by showing a video of specific case studies and some pretty interesting technology they're using to allow people with disabilities to do the job, like a standing wheelchair. Let's see what else they had, using screen reading software just to take calls. They also had a vibrating timer so cooks know when food's ready, you know, people who are deaf. And some pretty good stuff going on there. Then let's see, Kathy West Evans from the CSAVR spoke, and she outlined some of the partnerships that VR has. And I just want to read, there's a whole listing of them, but the public VR program is partnering with a whole host like Lowe's, USDA, Agriculture, Safeway, Food Lion, eBay, Microsoft, Manpower, Tech Systems, which is an IT company, TJX, Best Buy, but also Veterans VR, Indian VR, Wells Fargo, and of course the Hyatt and Hands-On Education Partnership. Alright, this next session was on ethics and wellness for rehab counselors. And actually this was presented by Carl Sabo, I think, Sabo. And Carl was saying that we have an ethical responsibility to maintain our functional competence, that we can experience burnout because of some stressors in our life that we don't handle. But what were some of the unhealthy things that we can do to cope with stress, like smoking, drinking, retail therapy? But then what was funny is Carl said that desserts is stressed spelled backwards. And some people go to the sweets, yours truly, to deal with stress. The healthy way to deal with stress would be our exercise, yoga, music, of course getting more rest, connecting with nature, laughing, being with family. My final two sessions I went to was one I gave on communication styles, whether you're communicating auditorily or visually, and what services predict that these individuals with hearing impairments would find work. And the general findings, I always have my cheat sheets, even when it's my own session, is that treatment of impairments predicts by far 530% more likely to find work consumers were when they were treated if they communicated auditorily. So these are people who with hearing loss, and they're treated maybe hearing aids, hearing therapy, speech therapy, and it is just super effective for the auditory communicators. When we look at the visual communicators, there's a whole host of services that would help them find work. On a job supports is the biggest one, job placement, rehab technology, whatever. And the last session I went to for the first day is a session on voc evaluation. But there was a little segment on how voc evaluators are using the iPad in voc eval. So let's start with the organizational and administration. How are they using the iPad? Well, they're using timers. I guess in the old days they would actually use watches and other stopwatches and really could only do one client at a time, or it was difficult to keep track of multiple clients. I guess with the iPad you can set multiple timers for multiple clients, and this is obviously a good thing. Also using the iPad for task lists, to develop those, and also reminders for the timers. So those are some organizational and administrative ways VOC evaluators are using the iPad. For communication, the VOC evaluators are using it for Skype. Skype is available outside of the iPad, but there's an app for that. Augmentative communication, such as like text-to-speech, they're using it for report writing and for safety. Finally, for some assessment, like for example, using it with your clients to determine if they can use technology. I guess using YouTube to watch some videos on certain jobs and things like that. Using other things like the calculator, some apps that are like flashcards, art apps like Zoodle Pad for eye-hand coordination, and then like Pandora, a music app for maybe like relaxation. I met a woman who is selling her book, also selling her story, and it was such an interesting conversation I had with her. She's very delightful, very funny. Her name is Cynthia White, and she wrote this book, Views from My Chariot, a Wheelchair Oddity. You know, and it says right on here, humorous. So it's got some lighthearted sections. It even says a lighthearted, optimistic, problem-solving, never give up blueprint for physical independence and emotional freedom. Well, the last session I just went to was pretty active and pretty well attended. It's called the Collaborating with Other Rehabilitation Associations for the Future of the Profession. Rehab associations are fragmented. You might have counseling organizations, private sector organizations. You get 4,000 people here, 600 people there saying something, and it's not a strong voice, but if you come together and say something similar, that's what we're trying to achieve, apparently. So what do we have to say? Well, really what we have to say is, particularly rehabilitation counselors, are counselors who should be recognized at the state level for licensure, and at the national level at the federal, for the feds, as far as counseling maybe military vets and their families and things like that. The American Counseling Association and the accrediting body, KCREP, have been taking steps to position themselves to define what counseling is and how that's going to be accredited. Unfortunately, they don't approve of rehabilitation education as part of the counselor preparation. And so what's happening is that rehab counselors are being forgotten when we're talking about accrediting educational institutions. So we want to be able to have a voice, but when you're only 600 or 4,000 or whatever, it's not a strong voice. So the idea is, well, let's talk together because we all have a shared interest in this. So I just came from a session called Knowledge Translation and Action, Supporting Evidence-Based Practice in VR. And the presenters are talking about a multi-agency endeavor funded by the government to support efforts to identify research that can help practitioners and others to ensure good outcomes for people with disabilities, whether in a vocational sense, independent living sense. So the clinical decisions that we make should not be off the top of our head, but yet we use judgment as professionals based on the literature. But the Knowledge Translation Project is more than that. They have a website where we can get some of this information, learn about research, and make these informed clinical decisions. Another website where you can learn about research is at the VocRehabRadio.com website, where we have some blogs, which would be some lighthearted articles written on VR topics to get you to think about some concepts. I have podcasts in which I speak with practitioners and researchers on what's new in VR and how practitioners are applying that information. We have other videos on various topics in VR. And then finally, in our forums, you can interact with us and on various topics, post questions, ask questions, and have fun.